Conference, please welcome the chair for this session, Shabana Mahmood, and the Platform Party.
Conference, welcome back for this afternoon session. I hope everybody is fed and watered and refreshed after our lunch break. We've got a really interesting debate ahead of us this afternoon. And we're going to kick off with our Scotland report. And Scotland, as I know you will all agree, is absolutely critical to all of us in the Labour movement and our ability to form a Labour government at the next general election. Our first speaker is making his first speech to us as leader of the Scottish Labour Party, a post he was elected to last November. Please welcome Richard Leonard.
Shabana, comrades and friends, it really is an honour to stand before you today as the leader of the Scottish Labour Party. When I stood for the leadership of our Scottish party last year, journalists kept asking me two questions. The first was, can somebody born in England be the next First Minister of Scotland? Well, for the sake of all of those people in all of those communities who need Labour governments, Conference, I fully intend to be the next First Minister of Scotland. And the second question I kept being asked was, are you a Corbynista? So I confessed that I voted for Jeremy both times because the people of Scotland need a Jeremy Corbyn-led Labour government to tackle poverty, inequality and a failing economy, just as much as the people from every other community represented at this conference. Because I tell you this, we know that the forces that threaten the life chances of children growing up by the Mersey are the same ones that threaten the life chances of children growing up by the Clyde. So we should stop dividing people on the basis of nationality and start uniting them on the basis of class. Because the real division in our society is not between Scotland and England. It is between those people who own the wealth and those people who, through their hard work and endeavour, create the wealth. That's the real division in society. And let me say as well that I firmly believe that we will get Jeremy Corbyn into Downing Street, and I hope it's sooner, not later. And we'll get him in. We'll get him in, not despite the fact he's got principles and integrity. We'll get him in precisely because of the fact that he's got principles and integrity. I was elected on a platform of public ownership, of anti-austerity, and of a redistribution of not just wealth but power, on a conviction that the days are long gone when we could tinker around the edges or manage our way back to power, that the time has come for real change. And I am even more convinced now than ever, after a summer spent travelling the length and breadth of Scotland, from Stranraer to Shetland, from Aberdeenshire to Ayrshire, holding public meetings, visiting and meeting with workers, with trade unions, with community groups and businesses. Real change is needed. And let me say at the very outset, we don't need another independence referendum to change Scotland as far as I'm concerned. We've just had one, and the majority of people do not want one. And as we meet here this week, with the prospect of a general election, I can make clear today that the next Labour manifesto will oppose another independence referendum. We don't need a referendum to change Scotland. We need the election of a Scottish Labour government to change Scotland. And we need a confident Labour Party reawakening hope out of despair right across these shared islands. Because too much inequality is unrecognised, unacknowledged, but worse, it is unchallenged. In Scotland today, the richest 1% own more personal wealth than the whole of the poorest 50% put together. So instead of a fervent devotion to inequality from the Tories and timidity and mediocrity from the Nationalists, it is time for moral courage and audacity from Labour, which is why I have said that the time has come to consider a wealth tax, a 1% windfall tax on Scotland's wealthiest 10% would raise £3.7 billion to invest in public services. And it is why I am saying today that Labour has unfinished business on land reform. Labour abolished feudalism in the first term of the Scottish Parliament. But 20 years later, we are still living with feudal ownership. 432 private landowners still own half of all privately owned land in Scotland. And with ownership comes power. We need land justice because our earth is a common treasury. We need land ownership in Scotland for the many, not the few. And we need this in the economy too, which is why we want workers to have the statutory right to buy the enterprise they work in when it is put up for sale or facing closure. Because why on earth shouldn't the people who create the wealth own the wealth that they create? We need more planning and less market. The people need a government prepared to act, not simply react. And we are the Labour Party. So once again, we will be what we always should have been, the party of organised labour. So trade unions will have a central role to play, not only in defending their members' interests in the present, but in planning the new economy for the future. We will overhaul regional selective assistance and reform public procurement to support local industries and homegrown businesses, so that never again do we see factories and fabrication yards standing idle whilst offshore wind farms in UK inshore waters, paid for by public money and energy user levies, are built in factories and yards overseas. And the redistribution of power means something else: constitutional reform. Of course, this is not a demand limited to Scotland. There is restlessness in England for more powers at a local and regional level. So let me make it clear from this conference today that a federal Britain with greater powers for the Scottish Parliament is the radical solution that I want to see. We need new powers to reflect the new realities of Brexit, which is why there is a Labour guarantee that devolved powers returning from the European Union will be transferred to the devolved governments, and that we will enter a new era of co-determination in a new era of democratic politics. So our task in this party is to reinvigorate politics. It is to build up our movement for democracy and socialism. It is to lead a manufacturing strategy as part of a plan for jobs and industry, which goes beyond the market, which has a regional dimension, building a full employment economy, tackling climate change, providing decent homes, bringing an end to PFI, and heralding a renaissance in public ownership. And our mission to end once and for all child poverty, to eradicate health inequalities, to invest in a national health service free at the point of need, to bring dignity in retirement to our pensioners, and all based on a socialism which is both visionary but practical and rooted in the daily experiences of working people. So we are a radical party of change once more. We are getting back to these our traditions and these our principles. We are proud of our history. We are proud of our socialism, which goes back to Keir Hardie and the pioneers. And my final appeal today to anyone watching this, listening to this, is if you share our vision of change for Scotland, come and join us. Be part of this movement for real change, because in the end, we write our own history. And if we stick to our convictions and have the courage of our convictions, with new energy, but rediscovering our old idealism, we will not only win again, we will deserve to win again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Richard. Conference, we're now going to hear a report from the European Parliament and the leader of the European Parliamentary Labour Party, Richard Corbett. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Conference, this speech may be the last time a leader of the EPLP speaks to party conference. A moment, perhaps, to reflect on 43 years of battles won, battles lost, and battles still being fought by Labour MEPs. And conference, we should pay tribute to all my MEP colleagues, past and present, who have given so much for Labour on the doorstep and in the parliamentary chamber, many of them here today. In our work at European level, the dividing lines are rarely one country against another. They are political dividing lines, just as they are at national level and at local level. And as part of the socialist group in the European Parliament, Labour MEPs have won more battles than we have lost. We have made sure that the European single market is a market with rules. Rules to protect workers, consumers, and the environment. Rights and standards applicable across Europe, preventing a race to the bottom. Workers' rights, from the right to paid holiday to equal rights for part-time workers to working time. Consumer protections, from roaming charges to the safety of toys. Common environmental standards, medical research programs, student exchanges, a crackdown on bankers' bonuses. I could go on. The list is a long one. But of course, we've not won every battle at European level, any more than we have at national level. But those European rules and standards have enough bite for the neoliberal right to go apoplectic. And that is why the right wing of the Tory party is so determined to take us out of the European Union and out of any common European standards that get in the way of their aim of a corporate free-for-all. They want a Wild West economy where anything goes. And that, conference, is where this Tory government is taking us. Make no mistake, the Chequers plan was already a hard Brexit. It took 2 years of negotiation, not between Britain and the EU, but between the factions of the Tory party. It lasted just 2 days before cabinet ministers resigned and 50 Tory MPs said they would never vote for it because it wasn't hard enough. What a shambles. What a joke. Talking of jokes, did you hear the one about how many Brexit ministers it takes to change a light bulb? One to promise a brighter future, and all the others to screw it up. But conference Brexit is no joke. As her deal falls apart, Theresa May is even threatening to leave without a deal, creating a legal limbo on everything from the right of residence of EU citizens here to aircraft landing rights, reverting to costly WTO tariffs on trade, with customs checks disrupting our supplies and our exports. This all sounds very technical, but as every trade unionist in this hall knows, thousands of jobs are at stake. No deal or a bad deal, it will be a Tory deal, a hard Brexit, the worst outcome for this country and for the people we represent. So, conference, our challenge now as the Labour Party is what to do in this situation. We should certainly oppose a costly, damaging, job-destroying, rights-threatening Tory Brexit that will wreak havoc on our country, hit our public finances, and get in the way of everything we want to achieve when we come to government with Jeremy as our Prime Minister. The EPLP is fully behind the 6 tests that Jeremy and the front bench have set to evaluate any Tory Brexit deal, and their decision to vote against it when those tests are not met, leaving all options on the table if the deal is rejected. And they're right to leave all options open, because the least you can say is that the Tory Brexit is not what was promised. Boris Johnson, remember him? Gove, Fox, and their associates, they told us Brexit would be easy. Well, that's a laugh. They told us that it would save lots of money that would all go to the NHS. It's turning out to cost a fortune. They told us we'd have shiny new trade deals ready on day one. Well, that's not working either, unless you're a fan of chlorinated chicken. So people who voted leave are entitled to say, hang on a minute, that's not what I was promised, this is not what we were told, and it's damn well not what I voted for. It's not surprising that there is widespread disquiet, that people are worried. People have a right to oppose a bad deal. People have a right to stand up to broken promises. People have a right to a fair democratic process. Comrades, the most crucial weeks of Britain's post-war history lie ahead of us. We face chaos and confusion on the government side. It's up to Labour, the party of democracy, to restore trust and protect the country from Brexit ruin. And I call on colleagues across this hall, in the weeks and months ahead, to defend Labour's European legacy and the achievements of Labour's MEPs, defend the rights we have won, defend the standards we have secured, and defend the values for which we have always stood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your leadership of Labour's MEPs, and to all of our Labour MEPs, many of whom are sitting in the front here. Who knows what the future holds, but you've all done a fantastic job of standing up for Labour values right till the very end, which may or may not happen. So thank you very much to all of you. Conference, our debate this afternoon is on social security and skills. In this debate, we will be talking about how, as well as investing in our economy, Labour will invest in people, creating a national education service to give people the skills that they need at work, while ensuring that those unable to work have dignity in the social security system. Our first speaker is going to be our Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Margaret Greenwood, but firstly, we're going to watch a video.
The most comprehensive system of social security ever introduced into any country, so it may bring new strength and well-being to our country.
It gives me great pleasure to open the conference debate on social security and skills. I would like to pay tribute to everybody who's contributed to our policy development through the National Policy Forum and through campaigning for social justice. I would also like to thank my Work and Pensions colleagues, Shadow Minister for Disabled People, Marcia de Cordova, Shadow Employment Minister, Mike Amesbury, and Shadow Pensions Minister Jack Dromey for the vital work that they do in holding the government to account and promoting a Labour alternative. The welfare state, which was founded by the post-war Labour government, has transformed lives, tackling poverty and homelessness and supporting people in their time of need. It is an achievement which we in the Labour movement are rightly proud. At its heart should be respect for all, whatever a person's circumstances and whatever challenges they may face. And there should be respect too for the public servants who deliver it. Yet under the Tories, we are seeing something quite different. Their treatment of disabled people has been shameful. The United Nations found that their welfare reforms have led to grave and systematic violations of disabled people's rights. At least 75,000 people have lost mobility vehicles, leaving them at risk of being isolated in their own homes. Thousands of disabled people have been forced to undergo stressful and poorly designed PIP and work capability assessments. And the sanctioning of people who are ill or disabled has even been linked to deaths, including suicides. No wonder disabled people are calling it a hostile environment. Universal credit is failing, driving people into debt, hunger, and even destitution. Over 4 million children growing up in poverty, over 1 million people forced to go to food banks, and thousands falling out of the system altogether because the processes involved in making a claim are just too complex. This cannot go on. The government must stop the rollout of universal credit and fix its many flaws before it causes any more hardship. At the centre of the Tory social security system is their heartless sanctions regime. A sanctions regime that claims to help people into work that lasts, but that rarely does so, that leads to increased ill health and for some destitution, and which punishes someone just because they missed the bus on the way to the job centre or even because they attended a job interview. The impact can be devastating. The average sanction is the loss of 1 month's money, and a sanction can be as long as 3 years. This government is leaving people feeling demoralised and undermined instead of valued and supported. Any one of us could find ourselves on the receiving end of this callous regime, because of course any one of us could be made redundant, become ill, experience relationship breakdown, or find ourselves caring for a loved one. Instead of providing stability and social security, the government is tearing away the safety net that should be there for any of us should we need it. Under the Tories, our social security system has lost sight of its purpose. They say that driving people into work will address poverty and improve the economy, regardless of the quality or suitability of those jobs. But conference, the Tories have failed to deliver. Nearly 4 million people are in insecure work, and millions of working families are in poverty. We know that the majority of people want to work, but we know too that the sanctions regime is failing. That is why the next Labour government will scrap the Tories' punitive sanctions regime in its entirety. We will rebuild our social security system from on the principles on which it was founded, supporting people rather than policing them, and alleviating poverty rather than exacerbating it. Instead of punishing people, we will empower them, and we will use the resources currently being squandered on sanctions to provide high-quality career and employment services in communities across the country. We will make sure that people can access the skills, training and opportunities they need to thrive. For the young people starting out in life, for parents and carers going back into the workplace, and for the experienced workers looking for a new direction in later life. That's the real way to deliver the workforce that will transform our economy. This has never been more important. Artificial intelligence and automation are already bringing profound change to our working lives. New technology offers new opportunities, but it also presents challenges. We need a highly trained workforce and an environment in which people are able to update their skills throughout their lives. Conference, we are ambitious for our country and for all of our people. That is why today I am promising a complete change in direction. We will end the hostile environment that Tories have created by completely overhauling our social security system. We will rebuild it and restore dignity at its heart. The scale of our ambition means we cannot do it alone. So over the coming months, we will be inviting submissions from across the country to develop proposals for a social security system that is based on compassion and respect rather than distrust and stigma. Our vision of the future is one in which the talents of each and every person are developed in a way that enriches their lives and our communities. A future in which everyone who can work is able to play their part in transforming our economy. A future, too, in which social security is there to provide stability and support for any of us should we need it. Together, we will create a social security system we can all be proud of, so that together we can rebuild our economy and create a society for the many, not the few.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Conference, we will be taking a number of items this afternoon, including the contemporary composites on in-work poverty and the school system. The main policy commission reports that we are considering are early years education and skills, which are on pages 7 to 23 of the National Policy Forum report, and work, pensions and equality, which is on pages 119 to 134 of the report. We have also been notified of proposals to refer back sections of the National Policy Forum report, which we'll come on to in a bit. First, we will take contemporary composite number 3 on in-work poverty, which is going to be moved by Usdaw. And could I also ask the GMB to be ready to second the motion?
Conference, Paddy Lillis, Usdaw, moving the contemporary motion on in-work poverty. Conference, during the summer, Usdaw conducted a survey of over 10,500 workers in retail and associate sectors, and we asked them about their experiences of low pay and the impact that insecure work has on their lives. This is one of the largest surveys of low-paid workers in recent times, and Conference, our findings are stark. They show clearly the true extent of Britain's broken economy. 7 in 10 low-paid workers are struggling to pay gas and electricity bills. A third have missed or been late with rent and mortgage repayments. And 50% of low-paid workers have missed meals to pay for essential bills. Conference, close to 1 in 10 have used food banks to feed themselves and their families. And in this, the 6th richest economy in the world. This is a roll call of shame for this government. But Conference, for many workers that we represent, the issue is not just low hourly pay rates. It's also that workers are getting the hours that they need to make a living. Short hours contracts are now the norm, with 2/3 of workers in retail regularly working hours that aren't guaranteed in their contracts. Conference, workers in low pay and short hours contracts are struggling. And every time a Tory minister brags about this supposedly strong economy, all I can hear is a total disregard for the day-to-day struggles working people in this country are facing. And however bad it is now, the Conservative government's universal credit is about to make life a lot worse for millions of low-paid workers. Nothing epitomises Tory arrogance like their approach to universal credit. They've designed a system that doesn't work in the real world, a system which everyone knows is broken, and yet they still plough on regardless. A quarter of the people we surveyed currently rely on in-work benefits, and under the current plans, they will in the near future be moved on to universal credit. And when they do, they will lose out for simple things like being paid 4 weekly or having a change in their hours. Conference, I am today calling on the government to immediately halt the rollout of universal credits. Calling for a fundamental rethink and for a complete overhaul of a system that's broken and will not work. Conference, Usdaw's research underlines the desperate need for change in this country. We found that people working on secure, better paid contracts are 50% less likely to be claiming welfare payments and will not be missing meals in order to pay everyday bills. This need for a radical change forms the basis of Usdaw's Time for Better Pay campaign. And so we ask that you stand with us in this campaign and we call for radical change. We need a minimum rate of £10 per hour for all workers, a minimum contract of 16 hours per week for everyone who wants it, and a statutory right to a contract that reflects on the individual's normal working hours. Because Conference, it is not right in the 21st century that 1 in 10 workers we surveyed are having to rely on food banks to feed themselves and their families. Our economy is broken, yet the Tories won't listen. and have shown time and time again they don't care about the plight of working people. Conference, it falls to us, the Labour Party, to fix our broken economy and to end the scourge of in-work poverty. Now's the time for a Labour government, and now's the time for better pay. I move, please support.
Conference Chair, Barbara Plant, newly elected President of GMB, and pleased to second this motion. Although I say pleased, I'm not at all pleased that in 2018, in the 6th richest country in the world, we even have to talk about in-work poverty. 14 million people in the UK are in poverty. Of these, 8 million people in poverty live in families where someone is in work, and that is shameful. Let me be clear, there is no deserving or undeserving poor. There should be no poverty, full stop. But the idea that there is anyone in work and below the poverty line shows us how badly broken our economy is. As a long-standing teaching assistant, I've seen the faces of these families behind the statistics at the school gate. The children who start their mornings hungry. The parents who take a second job to pay the bills, but don't get time to read with their children or help them with their homework. It should make us all upset. It should make us all angry. And it should unite all decent people behind Labour, a party of decency and now a government in waiting. We have policies that will provide certainty and security at work to the millions trapped in temporary work. Labour is committed to a real living wage of at least £10 an hour for all workers of all ages. We are all for genuine self-employment, and our social security system must improve so that these workers are not left behind. But Labour will pull time on bogus self-employment, where the boss determines what you do, but without the rights, any of the rights we have all fought for over the last 100 years. I was at TUC just a couple of weeks ago, where I heard from the platform one first-time speaker to Congress. He said, "The gig economy, 0 hours contracts, is nothing new. It is simply the reincarnation of an ancient evil." And that speaker was the Archbishop of Canterbury. There is now a mood in the country that things cannot carry on as they are. Labour is providing the alternative. But most important of all, Conference, we are giving those families with the very least something precious, hope and a voice. We must not let them down. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both Paddy and Barbara. Conference, next we've got Contemporary Composite 4, which is on the school system. It's going to be moved by Nottingham East CLP. And could I also ask Truro and Falmouth CLP to be ready to second?
Angie Smith of Nottingham East, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. I'm sure you're all aware of the impact of the Academies programme in your areas. In Nottingham, all our secondaries are now academies, and about half our primaries. Education is sorely underfunded. At present, we spend a mere 4.4% of our GDP on education, well below the OECD average of 5.1%. And we all know our schools are suffering terrible cuts. I'm a retired head teacher of a pupil referral unit for school-age pregnancy. We were successful in raising the achievements and life chances of some of the most vulnerable in our city. 2 years ago, the local authority shut it down. Why? Because the academies wanted to have the funding that we'd been allocated, and the council were happy to hand over that responsibility. We've seen our local authority education departments reduced to skeletons. They're still responsible for the education of children in their authority, but lack the authority to do anything about it. They can't build new schools, they can't create new school places, somehow have to ensure that all the children are educated. Money's been drained away from any democratic control and has found itself in private hands. There is no longer any accountability. We've stood by and watched as some academies have excluded up to 50% of their pupils with no comeback on them. And then, surprise, surprise, their overall achievements have gone up, and up they've gone in the league tables. But what's happened to those excluded pupils? What about the negative impact on them, their families, their neighbourhoods, possibly the schools that have had to pick up the pieces? Who cares? Land and buildings that once belonged to the local authorities are now in private hands. We've watched as multi-academy trusts have appointed executive heads, business managers, non-educationalists on fat, inflated salaries determine how teachers, qualified teachers, run their classes. There is a failure of accountability. There is a failure of accountability of the use of public money on a grand scale. We now have a semi-privatised, market-based education system. As ever, it is the most vulnerable and disadvantaged who suffer most, as funding for special needs, looked after children, school-aged pregnancy find its way into executive pockets. We owe it to future generations to reverse this trend. We must form a coherent plan to resist, to put a stop to any future academisation, and take back these academy and multi-academy trusts into local, accountable, democratic control. To stop this siphoning off of public money into private hands and to spend it wisely, democratically, on all our children, so they can all achieve to their potential, not just the privileged few. This policy, not really all that bold or all that radical, to reverse the ravages of an academisation programme that fails so many at such a public cost, will have the support of our teachers and our parents and our communities. And so the Labour Party must work with our teaching unions, with academics and others to take this policy forward as a matter of urgency. I move.
Michael Chapman, Truro and Falmouth CLP. Conference, this resolution is about the future. It's about future policies, but more importantly, it's about the future of our children and our grandchildren and those who come after. Part of that, establishing that future, is building a national education service. And I believe that a national education service investment will be built on two things: investing on the people who work study and learn in our schools and colleges, but also providing a structure which ends the current postcode lottery on young people's life chances, a structure that provides real local controls of our schools by the parents and communities in which they're situated. Conference standards and aspirations are not built by changing the label outside the school, imposing a more expensive school uniform, upping the head teacher's pay by an average 30%, and cutting then the wages and conditions of new staff who work in the schools. That is not the way in which we increase the standards and aspirations of our young people. 40 of these multi-academy chains spent more than £1 million on executive expenses. When children are going without decent textbooks. More than half of these executives earn more than the Prime Minister. That is a disgrace. We believe that not only is that level of corruption, but there is a corruption which has been shown in the recent Panorama programme, and a corruption in terms of the narrowing curriculum in schools, a focus on external tests which leads to the exclusion of many pupils uninterested in the narrowing curriculum. Our constituency, and we hope Conference too, believes that all assets and properties of these schools must be brought back into public ownership and the marketisation of education reversed. It'll need bold political measures. There are some, even in this room, who believe that we should tread cautiously. Maybe a few more rules might heal the corruption in the academy schools. They say we're with you, but we should tread carefully. Don't use words like abolish academy schools. Don't use words like wind up them. I say to them, we should say what we mean and mean what we say. Labour in government must abolish these privatised structures. For many years, I used to teach just up the road in Liverpool 8, in a school committed to raising standards and aspirations. I think it's now in its third reincarnation as an academy school. We need a national education service which ensures that the young person up the road there in Liverpool 8, down where I now live in Cornwall, that they have the same opportunities and aspirations as the young person who goes to Eton and on to Oxford. That's what we should be establishing, Conference. I move the resolution.
Conference, we will now consider references back which have been notified to the Conference Arrangements Committee. There are 3 of them on early years education and the skills section of the National Policy Forum report. Each mover is going to have 1 minute to set out their arguments for the section concerned to be referred back to the Policy Commission for further consideration. The first is in the name of Colne Valley CLP, who wish to move reference back of the section on accountability, which is on page 20 of the National Policy Forum report. Could I ask the delegate from Colne Valley to come forward, and then could I also ask for the delegate from Islington North to be ready as well, please?
David Parker, Colne Valley, CLP. Our reference back was originally submitted on the basis of what the report contains, not what the press has been reporting for the last 24 hours. If what we read is true and Labour is now committed to the reintegration of academies into a planned, coherent and accountable public system, it is a very significant victory for those of us who have been arguing for this policy for years. It is a great pity that it was not contained in the report. This apparently radical development shows that when Labour listens to its members, real progress can be made. The party has a wealth of educational and legal expertise at its very fingertips. Let us make use of it. We urge the party to establish an advisory committee of teachers, academics and other experts to flesh out the pathway to a reintegrated public system. I formally move the reference back of the already inadequate and now totally redundant section on accountability.
Thank you. The next reference back is in the name of Islington North CLP, who wish to refer back the section on special education needs and disabilities, which is on page 18 of the report. Our delegate is ready. Could I also, just before he speaks, ask the delegate from the Socialist Educational Association to be ready, because they're up afterwards.
Chair, Conference. Islington North are referencing this back because despite consultations with the policy unit reform, we did not get written in here a policy of inclusion. Yet in our 2017 manifesto, we committed to an inclusive national education system. We committed to full implementation of the UNCRPD, which includes Article 24, which is inclusive education, and we committed to properly fund children with SEN and disabilities and train staff and fund it. None of that appears in where we are. Now, surely the point of the policy review is to take policy forward, not backwards. And until we have this commitment, which I would say by voting for this reference back would give a strong signal to the policy review that that's where we need to go, we can't actually build and put in place what is needed. I know that Jeremy supports this, I know that Angela supports it, I know that many of the unions here support it, including the teacher unions and the support staff unions. I think it's about time we did this. Disability Labour and the SEA all support this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Conference, the final reference back to be moved is from the Socialist Educational Association, who wish to refer back the section of the report on grammar schools.
Conference, James Whiting, Socialist Educational Association, moving reference back of section on grammar schools, page 21. Conference, grammar supporting Tories have always claimed that grammar schools give bright working class children a leg up. They always claim that social mobility is enhanced. The evidence for that? Well, last year, out of the 12,341 places, the grammar school places nationally, 564 went to disadvantaged pupils. Worse than that, 22 grammar schools admitted precisely nil disadvantaged pupils. The selective system, since it was introduced in 1945 or 44, is always divided by class and still does. We left a hostage to fortune back in the 60s when we did not complete this job. The Tories have now been able to use that and try and build and expand on grammar schools when we know that that money is so much needed in the whole school system, which is struggling for cash. So I say, let's finish the job. Let's end selection by ability everywhere. Let's bring the benefits of comprehensive education to all parts of England. And let's make schools serve the many, not the few. Thank you, Conference.
Okay, Conference, we're now going to move into our main debate. So can I get an indication, yes, there you all are, of everybody who wants to speak? We've got a couple of hours, so if we all stick to time, and I will get strict with cutting people off, but we can hopefully get in everybody who wishes to speak. So I'm going to start from over in this section and work my way around, and I'll make sure I cover the back as well. Can we start with the lady in the red hat over to my left? Then can I see, is it the lady with a green? Oh, point of order. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Dave Allen, Unite the Union, Chair of the National Disabled Members Committee, representing over 100,000 disabled members at work. Chair, your colleague Chair yesterday ruled that people who were standing up or waving items in the air would not be called. People are reverting to this. Could I make it clear? Disabled people can't stand up if they're in a wheelchair. Some disabled people can't raise their arms and wave flags around. Could we please rigorously enforce this? Bare hands put up from a sedentary position. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dave. And I can assure you no waving is going to get anybody noticed. And the first lady I called was sitting with her hand up. So that is a good way for us to start. I'm going to come over into this middle section and go for the young lad with the check shirt. And then the lady, I think, is that a polka dot top? Yes, there we go. And I'll take another round of speakers in a bit.
Good afternoon, Conference. Alexa Collins, Beaconsfield CLP in Buckinghamshire. First-time delegate and first-time speaker, and a bit nervous. We are pleased that the Labour Party continues to oppose the expansion of grammar schools. The data overwhelmingly shows that they do not increase social mobility. Repeated reports from the Sutton Trust show that they widen inequality, that the pupils attending them don't do better because they're smarter, but because they're richer. I'm going to share my guilty Buckinghamshire secret. I'm a grammar school girl. I recently met someone I went to primary school with. We chatted and I said something about secondary school and he said, no, I didn't go there. I failed. At 54 years old, with a family, a home, a successful career, his language was still that he had failed. I'm going to share another guilty secret. My daughter took the 11+. And I really, really wanted her to pass, but she didn't. She went to a comprehensive school in another county, and this year she took her GCSEs. We talked about sixth form, and I suggested applying for some grammar schools. She looked at me with disbelief, saying, but I can't go there. I failed. How bad did I feel? By the way, she just got 3 A's, 3 B's, 3 C's from Altwood Comprehensive in Maidenhead. Go Shona, go Altwood. We all know that the case against grammar schools is bad, but just opposing the expansion of grammar schools doesn't go far enough for us, because in Bucks, we don't have any alternative. We only have grammar schools and secondary schools. We're one of 3 counties that in the country that still operate this arcane system. There's Buckinghamshire, Kent, and Yorkshire. We have no alternative. And another thing that we have as a result of that is we have one of the worst attainment gaps in the country. The difference in outcomes in Buckinghamshire between the rich and the poor is stark, and it's widening. In my village, there are 2 schools, a grammar and a secondary. In the grammar school, only 5% have special educational needs. In the secondary, it's 30%. The national average for free school meals is around 14%. In our grammar school, it's only 9%, but in the secondary school, it's 35%. There is a disproportionate entry into our grammar schools from private schools because entrance is allowed to be controlled by the academies, not by the local education authority. In 2016, the pass rate from private schools into Bucks grammars was 60%. Is it because the rich kids are cleverer? No, it's because they can be coached to pass the test. In 2017, almost half of those who passed the Bucks test came from outside of Bucks, further squeezing the number of our state-educated pupils who can access grammar school places and making it even more unlikely that a child from a disadvantaged background could gain a grammar school place. We need Labour's message to be stronger than opposing the expansion of grammar schools. We need to make a commitment to end selective education. Very quick, one minute. We need to take the pressure of competition off our 10-year-olds and off their parents in this completely unequal system. 100% of our 10-year-olds should have the chance of local, equal, excellent education. The current system writes off more than 80% of them in failures. We need Labour policy to commit to ending this. Thank you.
Can I just say to all speakers, if you could try and stick to the time limit. I don't want to cut anybody off because your speeches are fantastic and it's good that we hear from you, but if we stick to the time limit, we'll get more people in and that's fairer for everybody. And I know our next delegate is going to set a perfect example of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Conference. My name is James Colwell. I'm the delegate for North West Durham. First-time delegate, first-time speaker. I have the absolute privilege today of speaking on social security, a topic of which I am massively passionate about. And I'm passionate about it for one reason, Conference, because I believe an ethical social security system is what it means to be a socialist. A social security system that stands up for vulnerable people, that hears the minority voices, and that can truly support people both in and out of work is what we need in this country. Unfortunately, universal credit is far from that. Universal credit has been a radical reform in the wrong direction. It has created a hostile environment and it has forced individuals to walk a tightrope between poverty and destitution amongst a hostile environment of sanctions, suspicion and constant reassessment. This is simply not good enough, Conference. I welcome Composite 3 and I fully support it. I think it highlights some very important points about in-work poverty and the fact that universal credit is not fit for purpose to support individuals who are also in work. Universal credit does not just need to be reformed, Conference, but in my opinion needs to be scrapped. We need to replace it with a radical ethical alternative that is built from listening to claimants and advice agencies. We need to propose a radical ethical alternative, Conference. I fully support Composite 3, but the next step is for the next Labour government to truly enact a socialist security policy. Thank you.
Just before we have our next speaker, I'll take another 3 speakers so that everybody can be in place and ready. Can we go for the gentleman, I think, with the glasses to my far right? Yep. And then the lady with the blue and pink shirt with the glasses here. In the middle section, it's the lady with the curly white hair, short bob. And let's have a look. Oh, I've done 3. I'll come for another 3. Let's hear from our next delegate.
Philippa Marsden, member of Unite the Union, speaking in support of Composite 4 on the school system. Conference. Education must never be left to market forces. We know that it is education that has the ability to change people's lives, unlock their potential and empower them to make a difference in the world. Access to good quality education is a human right, and it is one that benefits the whole of society. Education is also a great leveller. It breaks down the hidden walls of class and empowers people to take control of their lives. Teachers and school staff are the conduit for that learning for our young people. Working alongside staff in our local authority education departments, they are the professionals that understand their vital role and that responsibility. They are also the people responsible for safeguarding our children, for inclusion and making sure that no child is left behind. Yet in England, these crucial roles are being cut out through ideological market changes to schools in the shape of academies, grammar schools and free schools. It is a disgrace. In my authority, sorry, I've gone to the wrong page. Conference, I'm also a councillor in Caerphilly in South Wales and Cabinet Member for Education and Achievement. And I may say, thank goodness for a Welsh Labour government. Wales has not suffered at the hands of privatisation. We do not have academy schools. In Wales, local authorities are in control of school matters. What is happening in Kent would never happen in Wales. In my authority and all across Wales, our priority is inclusion. I am proud to say that in the last 12 months, we have opened 2 new schools in my authority, investing 110 million back into school infrastructure, secured substantial funding to support Welsh language education, and greatly increased local childcare provision. We work tirelessly to do the best for our disadvantaged and vulnerable children. It is shocking that in Kent, these same children are being excluded. Sorry, my papers are all mixed up. Shame on those academies. Shame on those head teachers in Kent. Wales shows what we can do if schools are in public hands. We must put schools back in the hands of our teachers, local communities, local authorities and parents. To do that, we need a Labour government in Westminster and Angela Rayner as our Labour Education Secretary. We need education for the many, not the few. Thank you.
Hi. My name's Armin Tesfaye. It's my first conference, actually, ever. So, yeah, please bear with me. I haven't planned anything. I haven't made anything. I just left school. I just completed my A-levels. I'm supposed to be at uni today, but I decided to be here instead. And I just wanted to say, it's great that, the support of just getting rid of academies is full of teachers, full of headmasters, full of all those staff, and for the Labour Party. And I just wanted to say, you also have the support of the students. Because I am sick of cuts. We are sick of cuts. We don't want less funding. We want more funding because we are the future, obviously, and we want to make sure that our future is safe. I come from Enfield, and in my town, we have most of them are academies, and by 2020, we have to make £12.5 million worth of cuts. That's around £383 for every pupil. I'm also required special education needs for my stuff because I have an autistic spectrum disorder, and I have seen great SEN staff come and go because there's no money in it, and the schools just cannot fund them. It is a disgrace. It is an absolute disgrace. And Enfield is also one of the worst towns in terms of violent crime and knife crime. And I say that is no surprise at all. Because once these young people feel nothing, once these young people feel no care, no empathy, and no support for any of those stuff, what do? They join gangs, they pick up a knife, and they do something stupid. That needs to change. And that will change, hopefully, with the Labour government. Thank you.
Hello, conference. My name's Sally Sweeney. I'm from South East Cornwall CLP. It's my first conference and my first time to speak. I have spoken to hundreds of people, but they were all under 12, sitting on the floor with their legs crossed. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, Panorama aired a programme exposing the appalling mismanagement, lack of financial transparency, and possible embezzlement of funds at Adventure Learning Academies Trust. I'm sure many of you will have watched the programme with a growing sense of anger and sadness at the shocking state of our precious education system. I felt all of this and much more. My own children went to Foy River Academy, one of the schools featured in the programme, when it was a flourishing local education authority school, highly valued by every child and family who benefited from the excellent education it provided. My granddaughter started there this week, and I have been devastated to learn of what has happened in the intervening years. In addition to the financial chicanery exposed by Panorama, just one example of which is £300,000 for a lighting upgrade, having been claimed and received by the Trust, but not spent on the lighting system in the school. I've also heard anecdotal evidence of cold classrooms throughout last winter, a broken lift needed by a pupil with special needs left unrepaired for 18 months, and a constant turnover of supply teachers. When I wrote to the Tory MP in whose constituency Foy School is located, I was further disturbed to learn that he was aware of all the issues and, in his own words, had been working on it for some months. Rather than feeling reassured by this, as I think was his intention, I realised that what we have now is some sort of sinister dystopian system, so centralised, micromanaged and unaccountable that even an MP of the government which presided over its creation cannot get the situation resolved for just one school in his own constituency. I was a teacher for 34 years, and I know that for some children, school is the only place where they can feel warm, well-fed and safe.
To wind up.
Yeah. All our children and all the staff in their schools deserve so much more than this, and we in the Labour Party must continue to do everything we can to bring about a national education service once more. Thank you.
Conference, before we hear from the next delegate, I'm going to take another 3 speakers, so I'd sort of work my way back to this end of the conference hall. I'm going to go for the middle and the back, and then I'll come back, and everyone at the front, I promise I'll bring you in the next round. So let me try and see better at the back. I think there's a lady at the sort of far left. I think, is that a purple top, burgundy? Burgundy sort of purple, yep, that's it, yep. In this section, if you're towards the back, let me try and... Is that a lady? Is that a green, sort of mint green? Yeah, you're waving at me, that's it, you. And then over here, I think that's a gentleman, is that slightly wavy, blonde, brown hair? No, you've just turned back, so I'm looking at you, you've got a beard. There you go, that's it. Yeah. Go for it.
Chair. Conference. Maggie Ryan, Unite, speaking to the Work Pensions and Equality section of the National Policy Forum report, and with particular reference to the paragraphs on equality reps. Conference. The report makes reference to the crucial role of union equality reps, and we welcome that. But I know that as an equality rep in my workplace, I can't do the role justice without statutory rights. That means proper facility time. At the moment, I have to do things on the run. Put simply, you just can't give members the full service that they deserve. Conference, we need to ensure that equality reps have the time they need to protect workers from discrimination. At our historic Women's Conference on Saturday, delegates made powerful, passionate speeches on how sexual harassment is on the rise. Our members are constantly fighting for their rights in the face of some hostile employers. The flood of disclosures from Hollywood to the Houses of Parliament have recently illustrated the enormous scale of the problem across all sectors in work and out. Over half of all women, including 2/3 of young women, have experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. And unions have been leading the way in tackling this. And union equality reps play a vital role. I am proud that Unite's equality policies were in Labour's Radical Manifesto, a manifesto which represented hope, belief and optimism. This means that under a Labour government, equality reps will no longer have second-class rights and will have time to protect the people they represent. Unite will be fighting all out for an early general election and a Labour victory that can achieve the manifesto's 20-point commitments for security and equality at work. It will be this that will really transform our society. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Conference. My name is Kate Hart from Hitchin and Harpenden CLP. I am the newly elected Women's Officer, proud to have been selected to stand as a candidate in local government elections next year and a first-time delegate and speaker. I am delighted that the school system was selected in the priorities ballot. In the Labour Party, we know that education is the very foundation of our society, something Theresa May, Damien Hines and Nick Gibb choose to ignore. They consider education to be only one amongst a number of priorities. They are wrong. A good education gives children the best possible start in life. A good education allows them to fulfil their potential. A good education is their right. I have no doubt that when we have a Labour government and a new National Education Service, we will see an end to the crippling school cuts that Theresa May has implemented as part of austerity. It's time the government stopped treating education as an expense and started treating it as an investment, and to ask themselves, what value do we put on our children's education? As part of the National Education Service, the Labour Party must put an end to high-stakes testing for children and abandon plans for baseline testing for 4-year-olds. High-stakes testing in primary schools is leading to an epidemic in mental health problems in children. High-stakes testing puts pressure and stress on pupils and teachers. And to what end? Data from Key Stage 2 SATs is often disregarded by secondary schools. It does, however, affect school league tables, a ridiculous system in which one school is pitted against another in competition for pupils and funding. Competition in education does not drive up educational standards. I was amongst the first children to take the SATs tests. It was impressed upon me that this was not a test of me and my academic ability, but rather a test of my teacher, and we were not asked to prepare in any way. Sadly, this is not now the case, and children in Year 6 can spend the entire term leading up to the SATs doing mock exams and focusing on science, maths and English, often at the expense of art subjects and even PE. Do you know what a relative or subordinate clause is? Or what the determinative in this sentence is? If so, a gold star to you. But if you don't, I doubt it has significantly impacted your life in any way, unless you have a job compiling the ridiculous questions for the English SATs paper. I am a mother of 5 children, 4 of school age. We boycotted the Key Stage 1 set tests for my eldest child and will do the same for my daughter, who is in Year 2 this year. By the time my next child is old enough to take the SATs, I sincerely hope we don't have to take this action. We must invest properly in our children's future, and we must let our kids be kids.
Hi, I'm Angie Smith. I'm Women's Officer for Wealdon CLP in East Sussex. I also work for a domestic violence charity, and I've just completed a master's degree in women and child abuse. I'm a proud member of Unison and a domestic violence survivor. I would like to speak in favour of the plans to reform our social security system, which Margaret Greenwood has just announced. Comrades, I have spent the last 9 months researching the impact of welfare benefit reforms like the introduction of universal credit and the benefit cap on domestic violence survivors for my dissertation. I surveyed frontline workers and interviewed survivors. I can't distill 99 pages of research into 3 minutes. Here it is. But I do want to tell you some of the key findings. First, universal credit. My research found that abusers were using universal credit as a tool for coercive control, often forcing women to live on allowances that weren't enough to buy even nappies for their kids. Just as seriously, many workers had encountered women whose perpetrator had spent the housing element of universal credit, leaving women with rent arrears, making it extremely difficult to rent a new property, effectively trapping women within the abuse. I also heard about women who were scared to leave because they didn't want to take the risk of being plunged into poverty by universal credit. And unfortunately, often these fears were justified. If women did leave, they found that the delays in universal credit meant they had no money at a time when they were highly traumatised and had often been forced to leave virtually all of their belongings behind. They were left reliant on local welfare schemes, where they still exist, or food banks, hence the title of my research. The food banks have been great, though. It probably won't surprise you to learn that also there were instances where the universal credit system itself was broken. Job centres failing to tell women about the domestic violence easement that gives them a break from the work-focused conditions. I interviewed 2 women who couldn't read or write English who were forced to use the online universal credit system. One was getting her 11-year-old son to do her job searches for her. The other one's refuge worker was helping her out. But both were terrified that they were going to be sanctioned in the future. Perhaps most frighteningly, I also heard about women who had been told to return to the home that they'd fled to collect their documents by job centre staff. Universal credit certainly wasn't the only welfare reform that was impacting women, though. I heard about women whose perpetrators had tried to force them into abortions because they didn't want to fall foul of the 2-child limit. So many women who I encountered couldn't leave abusers or were stuck in refuges as they couldn't afford to rent property because of the welfare benefit cap. And for those women who did manage to source a home, there was the terrible impact of the decimation of the social fund, ending crisis loans and community care grants, meaning that women were unable to furnish a new home. In the worst case scenario, moving into homes that had no carpets and not even a stick of furniture. Conference, the system is letting down traumatised and abused women and children. This is so much more than universal credit. Labour needs to be the force against all welfare benefit reforms. My message is, let's unite and let's fight for real hope and real change. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take another 3 speakers. I think, is that one of the stewards who's got a hand up for somebody else? Yep, can I? The male steward, so the delegate that they're holding a hand up for. And then if I come back here, can I take the lady with, I think, is that flowers on a white top over here? Middle section. Let's go for this gentleman here with the white shirt. And then back over here. Oh, have I got 3? Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry, I keep forgetting I've got 3, I'll come back.
Hello, Sean Rickard, Aberconwy, CLP, North Wales. And I'm a first-time delegate and first time at the conference, yeah. No, But in all seriousness, I do now wish that I had written out and rehearsed an actual speech. But, so, I'm a teaching assistant and a cover supervisor. And for those of you that don't know, a cover supervisor is like a supply teacher, except you're not trained and you just have to convince the kids that you're a real teacher. And most of us cover supervisors actually go in and try to teach because there's no point having an hour taken up by a free lesson when they could actually be getting something out of it. So, as I said, I'm from Wales. Yes. To begin with, so we've not got everything perfect in Wales with education. There's still a lot of improvement to go. But we're making some really good steps, and I feel it's relevant to the debate that I say some of what. So it's already been mentioned that we have no free schools and no academies in Wales. But also, so one of the key things is that in Wales we work very closely. The unions work closely with the authorities, with the Welsh Government. So that communication, it allows us to look at things such as agencies. So I don't know if any of you know about agencies, but basically supply staff, we're supplied through, usually through an agency. And what that means is that a private company takes money that has been put aside for education when it could really just be organised by the local authority. So that needs dealing with, because that's a big chunk of money that comes out of there. But that engagement with the unions and with the authorities in Wales, that's taking us a step forward as well. Now, we're trying a new curriculum, the Donaldson curriculum. I'm hopeful that it's a step in the right direction. It's looking more at the Scandinavian model. Furthermore, where we're doing really well in Wales is in the foundation years, in nursery and in reception. Now, I've worked all the way from nursery right up to working sometimes with sixth form. I've done all the years because I'm supply, teaching assistant, cover supervisor. I've also worked in London, so I can compare. Now, our early years is now putting a focus onto play and onto, pedagogy. I can't do that word, but focusing on play and focusing on nurturing. And we need to take that now and put it through all the years. Because, as has been mentioned, there's high levels of mental health issues, not just with the pupils, actually with the staff as well, and the stress that we're under. I know many good TAs that have left the profession because they can't afford to keep their, to pay for their kids, to look after their kids. They can't afford it, so they've left the profession. Teachers are getting overworked. They're working more hours than they're actually being paid. And supply staff, we walk in, and because the pupils are so bored and disillusioned and don't see the point of the school system because it's not working for them, they then rebel, and we have to walk into a room and face hell and spend half an hour just trying to get them to settle down and actually...
To wind up?
Sorry, yeah. So, just to wind up, I would leave you with a thought. I've never met a bad 4-year-old. I've never met a 4-year-old that was evil. So, every child has a chance, and if we give them a proper education, we'll empty our prisons, we'll we'll have much less problems with the NHS, social issues, we'll probably not have any Tories, because we'll have brought up our kids properly. Thank you.
Chair, Conference. Angie Roberts, speaking on behalf of Unison, the Public Service Union, and I'm speaking in support of the Composite Motion 3. And I'm also from Wales, like the previous speaker, the great nation of Wales, and I'm also a proud graduate of the Joe Cox Women in Leadership programme. Thank you. For thousands of people moving into use of universal credit, it has been a nightmare. Even John Major described it as operationally messy, socially unfair and unforgiving. And as the Ken Loach film, I, Daniel Blake, so ably demonstrated, the current system dehumanises people. For some it has led to destitution, and for others, tragically, it has driven them to take their own lives. The rollout of universal credit has been shambolic. Warning after warning about the new system has been ignored, and many organisations have repeatedly called for the rollout of UniCredit to be stopped and for a fundamental rethink of the policy. The original white paper said, the government is committed to ensuring that no one loses as a direct result of these reforms. We have ensured no one will experience a reduction in the benefit they receive as a result of the introduction of universal credit. Thousands of people know now that claim was a lie. It isn't just the fact that you have to claim online, even though many are unable to, as we already heard from previous speakers, or that they may face delays if you haven't got a bank or building society account, or that you are driven into debt from the outset because you don't get any money for 5 weeks, or that 1 in 4 don't get the right money on time, or that 40% waited 11 weeks or more for a full payment. It isn't just the fact that without money you can't feed your children, pay the rent, or put money in the gas meter or the electric meter, or that universal credit fluctuates, creating chaos for family finances, or that the sanctions regime that accompanies it is pernicious, or now that we even have this 2-child limit, or that all the money goes to one person, often undermining women's financial independence. But conference, it is also where the universal credit service has been rolled out, we've seen a rise in rent arrears, food bank use, more people driven into debt, and a bonanza for payday lenders. Conference, when something isn't fit for purpose, when it ruins lives, when it creates fear and panic, it's time to put a stop to it. It's time to halt universal credit, and it's time to get rid of this cruel Tory government. Please support this motion and support public service workers. Thank you.
Just plugging myself in. Councillor Kirsten Hearn, Hornsey and Wood Green CLP in the Socialist Republic of Haringey. I'm proud to be a Cabinet member for a good Corbynista council. Fraudsters, liars, lazy parasites, scroungers, undeserving benefit cheats, work-shy burdens on the taxpayer, negative attitudes towards people who have to use benefits to make ends meet abound. Listen, Daily Mail, people don't choose to be poor and need support. In-work poverty disproportionately affects low-paid, part-time workers. Many are women or disabled people. Many also work as personal assistants, support workers, care workers, supporting disabled people to live independent lives. They are often low-paid and on 0-hour contracts. They need in-work benefits to make ends meet, to bridge the gap left by poor pay. The desperation of constituents coming to my surgery who are in work but are low-paid workers and whose circumstances have changed is shocking. It's terrible that I have to issue food bank stamps to them, and I think in this day and age, in the rather leafy constituency of Hornsey and Wood Green, this is shocking, but it's shocking everywhere, and we've not yet got universal credit, although it's coming very soon. It's not a lifestyle choice to have to do part-time or 0-hour contract work. Bringing up children, managing the effects of impairment, not being given the right support at work, or not being able to get a job, a full-time job, means that many people, disabled women, people and women in particular, are living on the breadline. This in-work poverty reaches right across the nation. And I'd like to say thank you, PAs, support workers, and carers, who have supported so many disabled people, including myself, to live independent lives, who have supported people like me to be a counsellor. And I'm sorry that we can't always pay you as much as I feel that you deserve. We socialist comrades, let's have a policy of making work pay and giving access to all a fair benefit system which does not reduce the rights to benefits and put conditions on that are hard to meet. Stop and scrap universal credit.
Take three more speakers. I think we've got to this end of the hall. Is that a lady towards my right? Yes, you've just pointed to yourself. That's it. And can I go for the delegate for whom the female steward is holding her hand up? That's it. Let me come back over here. Sorry, the lighting here is that a lady with curly hair towards the end of this block in the middle? Yes, you've just waved at me. That's it.
Thanks, Ria. Right, comrades and friends, brothers and sisters, conference. Gordon Munro, ex officio, councillor for the People's Republic of Leith, and prospective parliamentary candidate for Edinburgh North and Leith, where last year we reduced the SNP majority to 1,625, and I'm back in the ring to win it again next time for the many, not the few. In my ward of Leith, 27% of all people are in poverty. In Edinburgh, there are 79,550 people in poverty, of which 42,100 are in work, in poverty. More people are in poverty and in work than out of work, a scandal and one that has to stop. I have constituents who spend 60% of what they earn on housing costs alone, as the private landlord is back with 29% of all housing in Edinburgh, more than the council and all housing associations in the city put together. I have constituents in my ward who juggle childcare as best they can, who juggle work as best they can, working 2, sometimes 3 jobs to make ends meet, and sometimes not meeting each other, putting a real strain on their commitment to each other. To then ask them to navigate a benefits system that makes them wait for up to 6 weeks before payment is a deliberate act of cruelty. Universal credit has not worked and will not work. The test areas in Edinburgh prove it. In-work poverty is on the increase, and it's a deliberate act by this government and its ideologues, who, supported by a supine press, will focus on so-called benefit fraud rather than the real benefit fraud, that of employers who rely on the state to top up the pay of their workers. They'd rather steal from the state than pay the tax due on the profits they've made in the UK. In Scotland, we have a government that could make a difference but doesn't. A government that tried to give powers back over benefits, back to Westminster, as they said they were not ready, despite saying in 2014 that they could take on the full panoply of the state, a dereliction of duty and a deliberate evasion of responsibility. My constituents, our people, need a Labour government that will enact the policies before you today and that John McDonnell talked about this morning. Let's work together to elect Labour, rebuild Britain and implement our manifesto, working for the many, not the few. Support Composite 3.
Thank you, Chair. Rebecca Boot, Aldridge Brownhill CLP and Chair of Aston University Labour Students. So Shabana, we hope to be seeing you soon. Conference, when I was a child, when I was at school, I was a bright child, but I wasn't a well child. One year, my attendance was 11%. It was thanks to home tutoring from the Sheffield Centre Hospital School and Pupil Referral Unit that at 16 I left school with 3 GCSEs. By all accounts, a failure as far as league tables were concerned. It's thanks to Walsall College and Walsall Adult Community College that several years down the line I was able to get the qualifications I needed to go to university. But conference, because I wasn't well enough to study full-time, I had to pay for that privilege. I had to pay to study GCSE biology. I had to pay to study to get the basic qualifications that you need for any job, to get 5 GCSEs. That is why we need a national education service which is free at the point of use. There are people like me who just don't fit the education system that we have. There are people like the fellow pupils at the Sheffield Centre who can't cope in schools or experience teenage pregnancy. There are people who are studying later in life to get qualifications they missed out on, juggling work or family or both. It's not fair that my ability to study was dependent on my parents having the money to pay hundreds of pounds in course fees. We need to make sure that further education funding further education is properly resourced, and the colleges which provide huge services to massive proportions of the population in education who don't fit schools are able to deliver the vital services that they're responsible for. Thank you very much.
Comrades, friends, colleagues, 2 names which I'm going to mention: Ian Duncan Smith, Esther McFain, Tory minister. If you think about those 2 names long enough, it might make you puke. So I'd rather not think about it. What I'd like to say, comrades, in-work poverty affect young workers who are on low income, zero hours contracts, like TFI, like McDonald workers and others, people who work in bars and clubs, people who are students, have a summer job, but universal credit affect other people, people who are on welfare, unemployed. Universal credit makes up several benefits. People used to get housing benefit, higher disability benefits, and other benefits. So this Tory government, for whatever reason, and they say just to make the system easier, have invented universal credit. It means reduction in income, at least £40 a week for people, and people have died because of the work capability assessments. This system stinks, basically. We need to get rid of it. We cannot reform it. We cannot tinker with it. Let's elect Labour government and John MacDonald, and let's get rid of the universal credit and this rotten Tory government.
Just before we have our next delegate speak, I'll take another 3. So I think I'm back into this middle section. I think there's somebody with a red shirt who's right towards the back. No, behind you, actually, there's somebody else. Yeah, that's it. You've just lifted your hand a bit higher. That's it. And then over here. The lady with, I think is it a white scarf with a green top underneath? Yes, you've just pointed at what I think is your white scarf. That's it. And, okay, we're over here. So the lady with the grey and the black hair? Yes, you've just looked around. Yeah, that's it, you. Yeah, got you.
Conference Chair, I'm Nadia Jama from Sheffield Central CLP. First time delegate, first time speaking, so very nervous. Sheffield, my hometown, the city of steel, has a proud industrial heritage, but after consecutive Tory coalition governments, we are now one of the low-pay cities in the UK. Wages are 10% below the national average. Since the financial crash, wages have stalled. That's 10 years of stagnation. Conference, Sheffield needs a pay rise. The inequality in my city means that life expectancy from one area to another can be as much as 10 years in difference. Sheffield, like many other cities, needs a Corbett-led Labour government now. Conference, universal credit is due to be rolled out in Sheffield to approximately about 80,000 families in November. That's 4 weeks before Christmas. We know that there are delays. We know that the impact that this has had on other cities. We have already got 18 food banks in Sheffield. The in-work poverty is rife within my hometown, so we support Composite 3 and ask that you support it too. But can I just add that universal credit doesn't just need a fundamental overhaul, it needs to be stopped and scrapped now.
Right. Hi, my name is Margaret Tyson, Wavertree CLP, Liverpool. What I want to talk about, we've talked about babies, young children, older children, young adults, adults in work and adults out of work. No one's mentioned pensioners. I am a pensioner. I'm almost 70. I am now thinking it's near the end of September. We're looking at winter. We're thinking food, gas, electric bills, etc. Now, do I eat or do I keep my house warm? Now, this is a big issue. The elderly are dying with hypothermia. And that's really all I want to say. I just want people to think, pensioners, please think about the pensioners. That's all I've got to say on this. Thank you. Bye.
When do I start? Conference. Marianne Gibbs, Broadland, PLC. First time delegate, first time speaker. I want to give you some facts about academisation. Fact, your teacher is less likely to be paid less under academisation. Fact, your child is more likely to be taught by an unqualified teacher in academisation. Fact, academy trusts are less accountable to parents. Fact, academisation does not benefit disadvantaged pupils. And fact, academisation does not benefit attainment in either primary or secondary schools. I want to be brief, and so I will just go on to say our children's education is worth more than this. It cannot be sacrificed for the profit of big businesses. I am so pleased that this organisation can do something about it and that our motion got through. So I would urge you to support our motion. Thank you.
Take three more speakers. I think we've wound our way back over here. The gentleman in the, is that a blue sort of top, shirt, polo? Yep, that's it. It's the lady with the blonde hair and glasses. Sorry. Okay, let me... I'm going to go for the gentleman there with the glasses. I'll come back. We've still got lots of time. We'll get lots of speakers in.
Tell me when to go ahead. Nervous. Go ahead. Thank. Okay, that's all good. Members of the platform, I'm a first-time delegate. I'm from Croydon. Thank you. I'll tell you something, I didn't realize it's really nerve-wracking. Now I'm seeing all the eyes, I'm nervous. Right, so those of you who keep your hands up, let's try. I'm practicing public speaking, thank you. Right, it's indeed for me a very great privilege to be here at this conference and to represent Croydon, the borough I've lived in for the last 30-something years. I'm very passionate about education, and I'm so concerned about what the future of our young people, they are the next generation. And I still believe not enough is being done. We need to do more for our children. They are the future. If we are not doing enough, we will pay the price later down the road. We need carers, we need social workers, we need teachers, we need painters, we need cleaners, we need everybody. And of course, at this age, I will get older one day and need to be looked after and to be cared for. And it shows you right now we are very short of nurses and many carers is because we have not prepared the next generation enough. I'm going to say to you, I have a child with special educational needs. And so when I speak from the depth of my heart. We are forgetting a generation. We are forgetting those children, those young people with special educational needs. I have a special condition, but guess what? I was given love and attention. Somebody helped me along the way. And it wasn't this country. I'm British born in West Midlands, but went to school in Jamaica from the age of 3 to the age of 21. And so I give so much credit to the teachers in Jamaica who loved me. The many teachers who knew that I had difficulties in learning, and they would say, put up your hands, those who don't understand. Can you see me after school? And will sit beside me one-to-one. I am here today to fight for education. No child must be left behind. Stand up and fight for our children. To every parent, to every woman, to everyone that is out there, I want to say to you, love somebody else's child. It hasn't got to be yours. They will never forget the love and the care you give to them. I am a living testimony of that. When my mother was in England as a nurse, I'm from the Windrush generation, my father on the bus and in carpentry, somebody in Jamaica loved me and cared for me. And I say to you, love and care for everyone, not just your child. May we continue to embrace our children. Remember those with special educational needs.
Thank you, Joyce.
And if you don't tell me that my time is up, I will continue. Don't forget the carers.
Thank you, Joyce.
Don't forget the mothers. Don't forget the carers who are caring for them, the grandparents who are caring for helping with the children. By the way, we need a living wage.
Wind up, please?
Help our children, the future. And to you all, I say, a round of applause.
My name is Blue Watson. I'm a first-time delegate for Banbury and Bicester CLP. I'm the chair of Young Labour for Banbury and Bicester and the youth officer for my CLP as well. Now, I'm going to do a very, very brief story, and then I'll get into why I support composite motion 4. When I was 5 years old, like most school children, I was obviously enrolled into my local primary school. And for the year that I was there, I was not taught how to read, I was not taught how to write, and I was barely taught to spell my own name. In that situation, obviously, my grandmother and my mother stepped forward to take care of me and ensure that I got the education I deserved. Also because the staff and the students were quite vicious when it came to making fun of me. Because I, like the magnificent delegate with the afro before, have autism in that way. So, hearing that, my grandmother and my mother took me out of that public school and taught me how to read and write in 6 weeks. Thank you. Thank you. And you probably think that that's a very inspiring story, and for me it is. But there's also a second side to that story. And that's that my grandmother had to give up her retirement to teach me, to give me the basic necessities that the government and that the schools that the government funds should have provided. And that is not acceptable. But we have to remember also, it's not the teacher's fault. The teachers are given what they can and do with it what they must. The teachers in this country have been reduced to nothing at this point, to the point where some teachers are having to pay for their own classroom school books. It was bad back when I had to go to school, and it's worse now. Thank you. That is why we need a national education service, a service that provides for everyone, a socialist system that levels the playing field so that every child has an opportunity. That is what socialism means, leveling the playing field and ensuring that all education at all levels, from cradle to grave, is excellent. That's why you need to support Composite 4. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Gemma Shanahan from Bridgewater and West Somerset CLP, first-time delegate and first-time speaker. I'm speaking today on behalf of young people, students who are stuck in an education system that caters not for the many but the few. We are failing our children. This government is failing our children. An education system that only really supports students who are academic and leaves all others behind. Where multi-academy trusts do just that. They take a group of schools. In my constituency, there are some MATs which have between 20 to 30 schools, all from different areas, all with different ranges of pupils, and they treat them exactly the same, making every school do the exact same thing, even if it doesn't work for that particular school. Treating little village schools with a handful of pupils the same as big town schools with over 400 pupils, it doesn't work. Students are being left behind, especially those with English as an additional language and special educational needs, because there is no support for them anymore. My mum is a primary school teacher in a MAT school and has seen so many changes and cuts to staff, especially support staff, and this is due to the Multi-Academy Trust taking the money that is meant for the school. Academising and pushing schools into maths has turned schools into nothing more than exam factories, where all the people at the top care about is what results they get in exams and whether it makes the math look good. Our children are not just data on a page, they are humans and they feel too. Let our children be children. Education needs to change. It needs to be a place where children are helped to succeed, not held back because they can't keep up with the Victorian-style teaching. Education needs to showcase each student's skills. Schools need proper funding, and most importantly, we need to listen to our teachers because they obviously know what they're on about more than the people at the top who have never worked in education. We need to listen to our teachers when they say multi-academy trusts do not work. Education is a service, not a business, and it should be treated as such. We are the future generation. Give us the best start in life. Let's rewrite education, and please support the motion.
Charlie Thomas, Shrewsbury, CLP. also a trade unionist. I'm part of the NEU, a teacher, maths teacher for 30 years, parent, you name it, I've done it. What is the point? Well, first of all, let me say, that was a brilliant speech. That was fantastic. I barely have to say anything. The school system is broken. It's finished. It's dying. I want to talk maths, but I don't want to talk maths because I'm fed up with maths. Shrewsbury is covered in maths, and it's dying. It's killing education. But where do I start? Primary schools, nursery, up to sixth form colleges, up to universities. All of these things are being destroyed. What we need is the National Education Service. Free at grassroots, everyone having the chance to do it. Let me talk about Shrewsbury for a minute. We have 3 different maths. Our Tory MP tells me there's no problem with our maths. There's no problem with funding. I was part of the Save Our Schools campaign. We presented the data to him of the schools' cuts. We took parents to Parliament to show him the cuts. He refused to accept it was true. And I was appalled. All I can say is we need to stand in front of the government and say, forget all your plans, forget academisation, bring back the local education authority, let schools be run locally. Thank you.
Okay, whilst the next delegate gets ready to speak, I'll take 3 more. So can I take the delegate for whom the female steward has been holding her hand up? Thank you. Then over here, the lady with the blonde hair, I think is that on a black jacket? That's it. I'm back in this middle section, so how about the gentleman with the light blue shirt there? Is that 3? Okay, and then I'll take another 3 in a bit.
Thank you. Aaron Howarth, Stretford and Urmston CLP. I'd like to speak in favour of the reference back made by the Socialist Education Association on grammar schools. Comrades, I am from Trafford, a borough which, yes, now has a Labour council for the first time in 14 years, but which also still has a selective system of education. As such, I attend grammar school, seeing firsthand the difference in privilege and wealth between my primary and secondary schools. This is one of the main reasons for my joining the Labour Party. In the MPF report, there is a reference to the abominable Condition Improvement Fund, but we must go much further. Comrades, in Trafford, 81% of children from our most affluent ward attend grammar school, compared to only 7.7% from our least affluent. Anybody, therefore, who says that grammar school attendance has nothing to do with wealth is deluded. It is an abhorrence and a disgrace that working-class children can be written off at the age of 11 simply because of a corrupt, antiquated, inappropriate system intended to maintain class privilege. Therefore, the Labour Party should be pushing for not only an end to the Condition Improvement Fund, and as laid out in the composited motion, further academisation, but also we should be pushing for a conversion of all current selective systems of education into comprehensive ones, as well as supporting an end to faith schools and single-sex schools. This way, we can ensure that our children are not segregated by their sex or the religion or wealth of their parents, but are educated together in an inclusive, universal national education service for the many, not the few. Thank you.
spoke on a reference back, but I hope it's in order to speak in the general debate, if that's all right. Yes? Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name's Richard Reeser, Islington North. I've been an educationalist for 45 years, specialising really in developing inclusion around both the country and the world, and a lot of training on that. And what I want to say is that academies are bad news for disabled children and those with SEN. The recent labour force study, which looks at the workforce across our schools in England, showed that between 2014 and 2017, there had been a reduction of 6,000 full-time posts of support teaching assistants. And that is when the population of the secondary schools has gone up by 300,000. So clearly we're seeing the effects of funding reductions, but also the academies refusing to take and keep large numbers of children with SEND. And where are they going? Well, the Select Committee on Exclusions, Education Select Committee reported on exclusions in July, and it's identified a whole series of places that mainly children with SEN, but also children with other issues, are going. 300,000 plus temporary exclusions and over 6,000 permanent exclusions from our schools in just the last year. A further 100,000 children off-rolled in one place or another just so that they avoid Ofsted inspections, and it's nearly always the children with SEN and some sort of learning difficulty who are put out of the school illegally. The department knows it's illegal, but they do nothing about it. Large numbers put into alternative provision, and surprise, surprise, who are the people who are bidding most for alternative provision? There are more free schools now running alternative provision than anything else. There is a huge growth in free schools for special education, as well as a growth in independent schools, charging up to £150,000 per pupil per year. And where's that coming from? It's coming from the same £6 billion budget for special education needs, the higher needs budget, which is meant to meet the needs of all of the children with higher needs. So each time you take 150,000 out of that per year, it leaves less money for everybody else. There is enough money to make it work, but not if we allow children to be excluded and excluded and excluded. We have to build a better system, an inclusive system, and that's why I support the school motion, because it talks about an alternative, and it's also very important that we learn the lessons of the past. In the last Labour government, from 1997 to 2006, they were committed to inclusion. After that, they changed their mind. In fact, Lord Adonis, who was Minister for Schools in 2007, went to the Select Committee and he said, Labour, we don't have a policy of inclusion. So we need to learn the lessons of that, because if we are going to have a system that's inclusive, we've got to stick to it, we've got to develop the methods of actually making it work, we've got to train all of our staff, teachers, support staff and so on, and we've got to fund it properly, and we want no more children excluded and forced into crime and mental health issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Conference, Wendy Simon speaking on behalf of Unison, the public service union representing thousands of education workers across the country. Conference, when was the last time that you heard a government minister recognise the vital contribution of support staff in education? The government has little to say about the vital role of early years workers or support staff working in schools, Sure Start centres, colleges, universities and adult education. Yet it is amongst this forgotten 50% of the workforce where the cuts have been bitten hardest. Unison's recent survey of over 12,000 school support staff found the following results. 90% had seen cutbacks, 70% were having to carry out duties that should be done by someone of a higher level, and 35% said they were doing tasks without sufficient training. And that's not to mention the pay or lack of pay. A comrade from the GMB said earlier about children going to school hungry. Conference, it is not right that our workers are going to work hungry too. This cannot go on. Funding must be found to ensure the level of staff necessary to provide the great education that we all deserve. The current education system is fragmented and dysfunctional, and setting up a national education service would be a huge step towards a cohesive and comprehensive education service. One with proper accountability that engages with students, parents, communities and all its staff. It is vital that any new education service recognises that every member of staff has an important role to play in creating a supportive and stimulating environment in which learners can flourish and achieve their full potential. We have heard so much in the last 2 days about the savage cuts to local authorities. Well, here in Liverpool, we will have seen 68% of our funding cut between 2010 and 2020. But despite that, not one children's centre has closed. And in the last 8 years, as a Labour Socialist administration, we've built 15 new schools, not with PFI. We've also refurbished a further 8. And I just want to say that if we get Jeremy Corbyn into government, I'm sure he'll do the same for schools up and down this country where it's vitally needed. I also want to end by thanking our wonderful Shadow Secretary of State, Angie Rayner, and her determination to build a national education service. Angie is a proud Unison member who became a Unison steward when she was a care worker. She fully understands the need to engage with those disillusioned or disenfranchised from the current system. And it is wonderful to see her take on the Tories in the House of Commons, and amazing to see her fight so hard for a new vision for education.
Thank you, Wendy.
Angela, we're so proud of you and look forward to developing an election-winning education policy with you for the many, not the few. Let's get behind Angela, the National Education Service. Let's get behind Jeremy Corbyn, and let's win the next election and build a world-class education system this country deserves.
I'm going to take 3 more, and I think we've got to this block. And I'm going to take the person for whom the female steward has her hand up. Yep. Person for whom you've got your hand up. Thank you. And then going to the far end. I think there's a lady with what looks in this light to be sort of brownish reddish hair, and I think a sort of greyish top. There we go. And back over here. This disabled member on the end here, at the end of the row, with the blue shirt.
Good afternoon, Conference. Bruce Hogan, Forest of Dean CLP, and a second-time speaker. The first time was in the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool in 1988. And in the intervening 30 years, my right arm hasn't half become stiff. Now, 1988 was the year that Kenneth Baker, the then Tory Minister for Education, introduced the Education Reform Act that introduced SATs and league tables and fragmented education as we know it. Now, a little bit about myself. I was a working comprehensive school science teacher throughout my working career. Pre-1988, when I was head of science in my local comprehensive school in the Forest of Dean, I knew every other head of science in Gloucestershire. We were friends, we were colleagues, we shared good practice, we saw the success of one as the success of all of us. We weren't in competition, we were in cooperation. That's how you raise standards. You raise standards for all. by cooperation. Now, what do we have? Unaccountable academy trusts, failing schools, failing their pupils, not being helped by other schools that could share good practice. When I now walk as a retired old geezer, I walk my dog down to the village shop in the morning to collect the newspaper. Lining up on the village street in my village in the Forest of Dean, I see kids wearing 4 separate school uniforms, waiting for 4 separate buses to bus them off to different schools. That is madness. Schools should serve their local communities, be accountable to their local communities, but be part of something bigger. I fully support the motion on the education service, but I regret that it's silent on selection. That is a job that is still to be done. Theresa May wants to create more grammar schools. What new speak is that? You can't have new grammar schools without what was called in my day secondary modern schools. You can't have wheat without chaff. You can't have curds without whey. We need a fully comprehensive school under a national education service administered by democratically controlled and accountable local education authorities. Thank you, Conference.
Good afternoon, Chair, Comrades, Conference. I'm Councillor Theresa Byrne from Ealing, and I'm going to speak on the NPF report on work, pensions and equality. Pensions are a subject close to my heart. I have just been part of the UCU pensions dispute earlier this year, which was the biggest ever in higher education, mentioned yesterday by Sally Hunt. The Employers UK proposed to move us to a defined contribution scheme away from the relatively safe and collectivity of our defined benefit scheme because they claimed they couldn't afford it. We would, as workers, take the responsibility and risk of the investments under defined contributions. No one would be able to plan for their retirement because we would not know until the day of retirement how much we would have on an annual basis. Each and every potential pensioner or worker would be treated as an individual investment pot. Together, academic staff, lecturers, professors stood alongside administration staff such as myself and students as we fought to save our pensions. Young academic and administration staff, many on 0 hours or insecure contracts, risked their livelihoods for their futures because universities are not only academics but places of administration. We have forced the employers to a joint experts panel who reported in the last couple of weeks to say the union, the workers, were right. The defined scheme is affordable. No longer are university centres for learning and growth, but businesses. And in that tradition, the workers fought back against that business-led investments that said workers deferred wages because pensions is not a right, but deferred wages are affordable. They are affordable, they are our future, they are our deferred wages. So we await the response from the employers. We showed those snowy days on the picket lines, but for the first time we had support from our leaders in the Labour Party who were proud to stand alongside us in an industrial dispute. So thank you, John MacDonald and Laura Piddock and the rest of the MPs who stood with us. Oh, and Billy Bragg. We showed we could succeed. We're on the final stretch, but we're hopeful. We need to ensure that we constantly remind ourselves that pensions are not a right, but are our deferred wages. and we should be invested in solidarity and collectively, so we can all plan for our futures, for all people to live in dignity in retirement. Pensions for the many, not the few. Thank you, Conference. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Conference. I'm a second-time delegate, but first time speaking. My name is Kev Watts, and I am CLP Secretary for Wellingborough. I've sat listening over the last couple of days listening about children, young people, pensioners, and disabled people. But I wonder if many of you are aware, actually, what a person goes through when they are first disabled. I do. I was able-bodied, but now, as you see, I'm in a wheelchair. I failed the back-to-work assessment, and I have a spinal cord injury. The assessments are degrading for everybody, all concerned, and I'm hoping that under a Labour government, the welfare system and the way that people can claim can be treated as human beings and not a computer-generated report. I'll be quite honest with you, however, I don't know if my sister is aware of this, and she's sitting with the USDOR delegation, but the day that the report landed on my doorstep telling me that I'd failed, I was ready to commit suicide. What stopped me was that my 13-year-old daughter would have been the first person walking into the house, so I stopped. That, and believe it or not, Maximus, Athos and Capita, the people that do the reports on us, do not report actually how many people have committed suicide. The latest figure, which was produced about 18 months ago, was 18,500 people. That is a disgrace for a 21st century country. As Paddy said, there are 14 million people in poverty and 8 million in work poverty. And because of who I am, I deal with people, disabled people, people in work, to make claims. I sit with them, I sit at their assessments, and I can assure you that having somebody like me present doing their assessments, they usually get through them and pass. Because if they don't, the only way they can claim then is to go to court. And the courts take anything up to 9 to 12 months, and the claimant does not get any benefit whatsoever. And it is a judge then who rules. I was fortunate. My judge ruled for me, and I am allowed to claim. However, the system is stacked against us, because you have to claim, or they send you a letter, and you have to go through the same system 2, 3, 4 years later. It is no longer given to you for the rest of your life. So I do hope that under a Labour government, the complete welfare system and the way that we treat every human being in this country would be sorted out right the way from birth to the day that we die, and that we do not have to go through this degradation system. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Conference.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take another 3. I think we'd wind ourselves back to this middle bit here. Okay. The gentleman in the sort of dark blue, I think, or black t-shirt. Yes, you've just pointed to your head. Okay, right, next section. About the lady on the end here with the stripy top. Okay, God. Oh, I can't find any distinguishing. Okay, the steward, I think, is holding a hand for somebody. There you go. Thank you. Go for it, delegate. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, conference. I live in Cornwall, a place where there are a lot of second homes, and actually today I feel like I found my second home. I would like to talk about the composite to do with universal credit. For 10 years we've suffered under an austerity programme which was basically an ideological experiment. It wasn't proven and therefore it was just guesswork, and we've suffered as a country, as a nation, under that experiment, and I believe it's mendacious and evil and unnecessarily cruel. Thank you. I'm a local town councillor, one of those, like many of you here today, volunteers who try and help our communities to do a little bit better than they perhaps might without us. I live in a town called Liskeard, which hopefully is now on the map. And I'm very lucky that I have other Labour town councillors who support the things that we do. And one of the things that we realised was that universal credit was coming to a town near us very, very soon. And we were worried for the people of our community. So what we did, we put some money aside as a town council in order to help prepare us and to train people in order to deal with this credit that was coming to them. Our local Tory MP, whose office is just around the corner from our town council office, discovered this, and as you can imagine, she set off in hot pursuit to offer help. Oh, no, she didn't. She told us that we were meddling in things that were nothing to do with us. We're town councillors. This is our town. Universal credit is coming to our town. People there work seasonally, so their wages fluctuate massively throughout the year. Some of them have no work through the winter at all. And I know people who've made the choice between eating and heating. And if we have a mild winter, they're grateful for that. And all I want to say really is that universal credit needs to be stopped dead in the water and scrapped. It needs to be thrown into the dustbin of history. What we need in this country, what we need is a socialist social security. And that's what the next Labour government will provide. For the many, not just the few. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jan Kilsby. This is my first time at conference and my first time as a delegate, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm from Twickenham CLP, which when I say I live in the borough of Richmond, Twickenham, people think I'm rich. I'm not. Actually, I live in social housing, overcrowded with my grandson, my daughter, my son, and I sleep in my sitting room, just so we get that clear. In my ward, Heathfield, I ran actually as a councillor in the last election. I got to know an awful lot of people. I knocked on a lot of doors. And one of the biggest things we have there is Turing House School. They want to plonk a £10 million free school on our very precious MOL land when we have one of the highest asthma rates, no parking, a lot of disabled, and we're just treated as if we do not belong to the borough. It makes me really, really angry because it's the super wealthy parents in another part of the borough that have the connections, the old boys network, that can get their buddies in education, shake hands, dodgy deals. And the Lib Dems are just as complicit in it as the Tories. Meanwhile, we have one of the worst special needs provisions in the country. Our children are really suffering, really suffering. I fault 3 special educational needs for my 3 children, and I never expected to see it worse than I did back then. I was accused of lying, faking, I was neurotic. Well, actually, one of my children has kidney failure, the other one is type 1 diabetic, but they fight back. But today, my grandson is also type 1 diabetic, 11 years old and out of school, because we cannot get the provision for him, the care he needs. A beautiful child who is home tutored at the cost of my child who set up her own business, yet she's ill herself. And this is the ruthlessness and selfishness of this government. And I urge every one of you who is a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a parent to come, a grandparent to come. Do not take for granted our children and our grandchildren. Everything I do in politics, I do for the young. I would rather drop dead of a heart attack fighting this government than sitting in an armchair at 80 knowing I had done nothing at all. I don't care what the weather is like. We have an £8 million deficit of special needs in the very rich, very wealthy borough of Richmond, yet the education authorities gave us £371,000. It's not good enough. We have one of the highest self-harm rates of young girls between the ages of 10 and 24, and you can bet education is part of that in a very wealthy borough. We also have one of the highest criminal rates now in London. Believe it or not, Richmond upon Thames. Why? Because of the cutbacks, because we're not giving our children the nourishment they deserve, the support they deserve. And I urge you, once again, don't forsake them, don't forget them. Our children need every one of us. Thank you.
Hiya, I'm Joseph Boddy from Richmond, Yorkshire, CLP. That was brilliant, can I just say. I'm slightly worried having to follow that now. I wasn't going to say anything, but listening to the debate on in-work poverty, I really do. When I left school 4 years ago, I was unemployed for sort of 9 months, and it was quite tough. I finally got a job after 9 months working for a supermarket, and I got off lightly, actually. Most people were unemployed for a lot longer than me. When I got there, I was thrilled. I finally had a job, I could work, I could pay my way. When I got my first paycheck, I was slightly disappointed because it was less than I thought. And then I looked it up and realised that it turned out at 18 years old, I wasn't worth as much as my other colleagues. I was worth £5.60, which is pretty dismal when you work as hard as I did. So I really want to speak in support of Composite 3, in support of the £10 minimum wage for all workers. Thank you. When I was at that job, I got quite a stark lesson in poverty. I met a lady who has since become a very good friend of mine, very dedicated. She had to choose for 2 years between heating and eating because someone decided that when her child left home, someone was going to tax her spare bedroom. That policy shows the utter disregard this government holds for working people. That policy, more than any other, it's a disgrace and should be scrapped. So going back to the job, my main point really is that equal pay must produce equal work. Sorry, the other way around. Equal work must produce equal pay. Thanks. While I've got the platform, I do just want to say that there is a meeting tonight hosted by USDOR about the abuse of shop workers. Please come along, because it really is not part of our job to take abuse. And also I call on the supermarket I now work for, a different one, that it is vital that if you really do believe in employee representation, please engage with the Union of Shop Distributive and Allied Workers and don't just pretend. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Conference. Ellie Drake, Lancaster and Fleetwood CLP, speaking in support of Composite 3 on in-work poverty. Sisters, brothers, comrades. The fact that it is 2018 and we are here discussing in-work poverty is a disgrace. It is positively Dickensian that in our society we have public sector workers relying on food banks, families missing meals so that they can pay their bills, and thousands of workers who don't have guaranteed contracted hours. Conference, I ask you, is 28 Britain the ragged-trousered philanthropists come to life? I'm standing here talking to you as a proud Unison steward. Thanks. A proud northerner. Thank you. And an even prouder young member of the Labour Party. As young members and workers, we're often told that we're the future of the party, the future of the trade union movement, the future of society. Well, Conference, I'm here to tell you, yes, we are the future, but we're also the present, and we've been dealt the rawest of deals. We are systematically and ideologically targeted by this hateful Conservative government. The discrepancy between pay dependent on age, the slashing of youth services, the cutting of mental health provisions, and the spiteful way that they've got rid of housing benefits. The Tories hate trade unionists. They hate the idea of progressive politics that works towards an equal and just society. But Conference, the Tories really hate young people and young workers. And do you know why? Because they know that we are the people who will be electing the next Jeremy Corbyn-led Labour government. Conference, young workers aren't being left behind, because for a lot of young people and young workers, we're barely getting the chance to even start, juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and with over half of our income going on rent. Comrades, we can't afford the bread, never mind the roses. So I ask you, support the motion on in-work poverty, but I also ask you to always support the contributions of young workers and members who put their blood, sweat and tears into their work, their communities and into this party, who are so often underpaid, undervalued and who experience the horrors of in-work poverty just as much as anybody else. Thank you.
As the delegate gets ready, I'm going to take my last round of speakers. I'm going to take 4, so I'll take from each of the sections of the hall, and I want the speakers right at the very back. So I'm going to try and see if I can actually see you with this terrible lighting. Okay. Right, is that a lady on the end there? Yeah, there you go. You've just pointed to yourself. That's it. Yeah, got you. Okay, this middle section. Can I have the delegate for whom the steward is holding his hand up right at the very back? Over here. Okay, I think there's a gentleman. I'm really sorry if it's actually a woman, but I think it's a gentleman with a sort of brownish top. Yes, you've just pointed to yourself and waved. There you go. Okay, now the last one to be called. Okay. There's a lady in a red jacket. There's two of you, but the one with the grey top underneath, you've just stood up. There you go. Thank you. Go for it, delegate.
Hi, conference. I'm Hassan Patel. I'm 15 and I'm from Leighton and Wanstead CLP in East London. I'd just like to start by saying that we have to give a massive round of applause for all the young people who came to speak up today, because you have to be really brave to come up here. Our voices are just as important and as valid as everyone else's. Young people like myself have been systematically failed by the Tories. Our education system is in crisis, with real-term cuts running deep, meaning bigger class sizes and the culling of the arts from our curriculum. Let's call academisation what it is. It's the marketisation and privatisation of our education system. Schools are being run like businesses, failing school children. Our curriculum is based on training to pass exams rather than cultivating a joy for learning. We need to bring our schools back into democratic local authority control. Students are leaving uni with tens of thousands of pounds of debt and are under immense pressure from skyrocketing living costs and poverty wages. The minimum wage discriminates against young people, as under 18s are only eligible to £4.20 an hour. I have a question. An 18-year-old's living costs aren't any lower than a 30-year-old's, so why are their wages? These are just some of the pressing issues facing young people in Tory Britain today, but we don't have to sit back and ignore it. We can't let it continue for any longer. Young people have a powerful weapon, and it's called hope. And that's what's going to lead our movement. Young people aren't here to change a few things here and a bit there. We want to transform society. We want a society that works in the interests of working people. We want a society rid of inequality, and we want a government led by Jeremy Corbyn. I was 7 when the Tories got into power. 7-year-olds like me did not cause the financial crash 10 years ago, but they shut my youth centre anyway. They don't care about us, but enough is enough. People are desperate for change, and millions of people are depending on us. We need a national education service. We need a £10 an hour living wage. We need funding for our mental health services. So to all those intent on preventing a Labour government, I have to say no. No is no. Let's kick the Tories out and unite to elect a Labour government led by Jeremy Corbyn. Please support our young people by supporting these motions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martha Fold, Sheffield Central CLP. I'd just like to start by saying solidarity with the comrade that spoke about his experiences of universal credit and assessments. I know I've been there, I'm with you. I'll be short. I'm disappointed that Composite 3 does not go further on universal credit in calling for it to be stopped and scrapped. Universal credit is unequivocally a disability rights issue and one that should not exist. A benefit that can only be claimed online is a disability rights issue. 50% of people living in poverty are disabled themselves or living with a disabled person. And if you're in poverty, you're less likely to have access to a computer, a smartphone, to the internet. Despite disabled people living on average with extra living costs of £570 a month, it is deplorable that universal credit will bring an end and does not include the severe and enhanced disability premiums. and the total removal of support that existed under employment support allowance for disabled students. I support Composite 3, but let's not pretend it goes far enough. Let's not pretend that universal credit can be paused and fixed. Thank you.
Conference. Tom Chapman, Leicester South. My home constituency, however, is East Hampshire, the constituency of Damien Hines, the current Education Secretary and hopefully soon to be the former Education Secretary. I come from a broken family. My mum raised me and my two sisters. She's a teaching assistant at a local secondary school back home in East Hampshire. It's a bit better now, but growing up, in the heart of Tory austerity, there were times when we had to choose between food on the table, heating for the house, or petrol for our car. Tell me this, why should a teaching assistant, somebody who spends her hard work, her hours, helping out those in need in the education system, have to worry about if there's going to be food to feed her own children? How is that allowed under the government? Well, quite simply put, it shouldn't be. We must go further. We need a Labour government who will properly fund the national education system, who will make sure that our secondary schools have enough money to properly pay teachers, properly pay teaching staff, make sure that they're not having to work out of their own time to do right by their students, because our teachers are working so hard for so little money, and it's not fair, it's not right, and it's not what they deserve. This country needs a Labour government. This country needs a national education service. We deserve better. For the hope of my generation, for the hope of my little sister's generation as she comes through secondary school, having to deal with tumultuous new GCSE schemes, we need stability under a Labour government, under a Labour National Education Service. Thank you very much, Conference.
That's a lot of you. Good afternoon, Conference. I'm Amy Allen, Chair of Lecturer from Baldock Branch of North East Herts CLP. Hi, guys. First time delegate, first time speaker. I kept changing my mind about putting my hand up. I have high-functioning autism. These aren't jazz hands, I'm stimming. It's slightly overwhelming, but luckily I have really supportive colleagues, and I feel I also need to represent women on the spectrum. There are far more of us than you think. And I also felt the need to express my disgust at this government's years of austerity. The food banks that we have in our area, there are over 2,000 food banks operating across the UK right now. There are many people out there who understand what it's like to have to go and use a food bank as you walk home with bags of heavy shopping that you've had to collect because you can't afford to do and shop, and you are hoping that your autistic child is going to actually eat the food that you're bringing home because that's all there is. Last year, my son is 11 years old, gave up all his Christmas presents to instead fund our local food bank. I'm incredibly proud of him, and it inspired people to donate towards his cause, and he ended up raising £260 for our food bank last year to buy Christmas treats for children who weren't going to get something. Universal credit is rolling out into our town later this year, and there are many people who are not ready. There are many people who don't realise it's going to affect them, that it's going to take away the tax credits that they receive. Just wanted to say, if my 11-year-old autistic son can understand the appalling existence of food banks in this country, why can't this Tory government? We need a strong Labour government to come in and take these away, because it's ridiculous that we are relying on the goodwill and charity of the people here instead of the government that's supposed to provide a service to us and look after us. Thank you.
Last speaker, Conference.
Hello, I'm Jill Borchards, and I'm from Stevenage constituency, CLP. I'm also the PPC for Stevenage. But crucially, I should have been teaching Year 7 this afternoon. I'm a serving maths teacher, until recently head of maths, and the NEU rep in a school that is currently under an academy order. Well, I say currently. Academisation means lengthy periods of uncertainty. We went into measures nearly 2 years ago, and we've had an academy order over us ever since. We are an orphan school, or we were, an orphan school that nobody wanted. Despite amazing improvements put into place by incredibly hard-working staff, students and parents, the fact we've come out of measures, that academy order still stands. There's now an academy sponsor found, but we still have lengthy uncertainty. Will it be January? Will it be April? Will it be September? Who knows? My concern as an NEU rep, and seeing teachers in other schools as well, is that experienced, expensive teachers are in fear of their jobs. Decades of expertise is swept away if it doesn't quite fit in with the academy sponsor's vision. Teachers may have direction to arrange their classroom in a particular way, to teach a particular curriculum, and to teach every lesson in a particular way. Children are unpredictable. Teaching is a craft, not a business. Master craftsmen and women with years and years of experience are being told to teach flat pack lessons. I have members coming to me who are outstanding teachers, terrified of the C word. They will be taken into an office with a little mention of capability, and they run. I implore that we stop academisation, we properly fund schools, and we take back every single school into local authority control. Trust the teachers. We will forever aspire to do better, but we actually do pretty much know what we're doing. I want every child in Stevenage and way, way beyond, whichever seat, in whichever classroom, in whichever school they happen to be, to have the best education possible and hope for a bright future that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Conference. Thank you to every single delegate who spoke. I'm sorry I couldn't get even more of you in. We had, in the end, 42 speakers from the floor. And we've been treated to some incredibly moving and very inspirational speeches. So thank you very much again to every delegate for sharing their views with us. Conference, I'm now going to ask Angela Rayner, our Shadow Secretary of State for Education and Skills, to wind up the debate and address Conference.
Thank you, Conference. Conference, we're at our best when we work together. That is what we did when we stopped the Tories in their tracks last year. Just look at their manifesto. If you can find a library they haven't closed, you'll find it under political fiction. And if you read now what they claim they do then, you'll find more self-serving delusion than Donald Trump's Twitter feed. Since then, our opposition, under Jeremy Corbyn, has lit a bonfire of the vanity project. The Tories are in retreat on every issue, from free schools to free school meals, which was saved by the campaigning of so many in this room and outside of it. Just last week, we forced them to give up a plan to spend £20 million on taxis to chauffeur a few hundred individual pupils up to 30 miles a day to get to their nearest grammar school. And while at the same time cutting transport for disabled children to get to their local school. And what did they do with the money? Not reinvest it, but to return it to the Treasury. This is when they have broken promise after promise to properly fund our schools. If there was an Ofsted inspection for politics, the Tories would fail their inspection and be forced to convert to a Labour government. And Conference, I'll tell you what that Labour government will do. Our National Education Service will not only reverse the cuts, but tackle the inefficiency of the Tory school system and take power from the corporations and hand it back to communities. Conference will start immediately by ending the Tories' academy and free schools programmes. They neither improve standards nor empower staff or parents. Instead, they've been shut out and cut out by Tory ministers in Whitehall. Like the schools minister in the Lords, who has his own academy chain but won't say how he deals with the conflict of interest. An unelected minister literally refusing to be transparent about his own transparency policy. If only he was as accountable to us as he wants teachers to be to him. And Conference, it's the same for our councils. The Tories talk about devolution, but they want to hand down the blame and not the budget. Councillors are left with the responsibility for school places without the power to create them. So we will allow them to build schools, create new places and take back control of admissions from academy trusts. We'll also tackle the problem of trusts that fail, leaving schools stranded outside the system. Imagine being in an organisation, facing a crisis, but with no leadership or direction. You'd think Tory ministers would know that feeling. Yet that's what they're inflicting on ever-increasing numbers of our schools. So we'll allow academies to return to local authority control. We'll end the scandal of individuals and companies profiting from schools that they're involved in, stopping fat cat set pay for bosses and restoring fair pay for the staff. And conference, we will use our time in government to bring all publicly funded schools back into mainstream public sector with a common rule book and under democratic control. Conference, on issues like the rising cost of school uniforms, parents have no say, while others profit. The Tories promise to empower people, but we know the reality. Not taking back control, but taking it away. And where parents and staff want to go further in launching and leading their own schools, our movement already has an answer. Cooperative schools, as part of the local schools family. Attacked by the Tories, under Labour, they will be part of John MacDonald's cooperative vision. Conference, these will be just one part of the most ambitious school building programme ever, delivered without the waste and inefficiency of free schools, and as we set out in the general election, backed by £8 billion of investment. And let me be clear, conference, that if I have anything to do with it, not one brick will be laid by a company that doesn't pay its taxes or a builder who is falsely self-employed. The cost of free market failure is highest in the most important area of school spending, their staff. Years of real terms pay cuts, rising workloads, and a failure to plan the workforce has created a crisis in teacher recruitment and retention. The result is that private recruitment agencies rake in over £500 million of taxpayers' money every year in fees alone. Our money spent on profit and not pay. The Tories talk about public sector waste. Well, I'll tell you, there's no bigger waste in our education system than this. So, led by our Shadow Schools Minister, Mike Kane, we'll set out plans for a state-funded teacher supply service, fixing the failure of the free market. We will cut out the waste and stop the exploitation of agency workers. And conference, too often, those who suffer the most from staff shortages are children with special educational needs and disabilities. So our National Education Service Charter, the result of thousands of submissions from members up and down the country, guarantees it will be truly inclusive. That is why our Shadow Children's Minister, Emma Lewell-Buck, will lead plans to stop those with special educational needs and disabilities from falling out of our schools system. And we will back it up with a record investment in modernising school buildings to make sure that they're accessible to all who could learn in them, providing an excellent education for the many and not the privileged few. And to achieve that, we must start before school. Nowhere is this Conservative government's failure starker than in early years, which makes the greatest impact on a child's life. They promise 30 hours of high-quality free childcare a week, but 1 in 7 families now pay more, and nearly 1 in 10 providers risk going bust. Even worse, the very families who need help the most are least likely to get it. That's why our Shadow Early Years Minister, Tracy Brabin, has led our plans for a new public service offering free education for all 2 to 4-year-olds and reinventing our state nurseries. A policy as radical as anything proposed by a Labour government in our history. But conference, I know from my own life that sometimes people need a second chance later in life. So we'll provide not just free higher education, but free further education. And we'll ask experts from across the field to join our Lifelong Learning Commission, led by our Shadow Minister, Gordon Marsden, because we're not afraid to hear from experts. In fact, we welcome it. We'll do the same when we revise assessment and the curriculum. That includes making sure that people know how to use their rights, including joining a trade union, which changed my life. Conference, after last year's election, there were even some Tories who wanted socialism on the curriculum too. They thought that if they taught young people the history of communism, they wouldn't vote Labour. I have to tell them, young people didn't turn to us because they don't know their history, but because they do know their future. They don't need re-education. They need free education. Because, conference, a society where education is free is a society where people are free. Conference, we heard earlier today from our Shadow Chancellor how a Labour government will redistribute wealth, and our National Education Service will play its part. But it's also about redistributing power. Because poverty isn't just about being penniless. It's also about being powerless. Powerless compared to your employer, your landlord, big business, and even the welfare system created to support you, but which the Tories have turned against you. So our National Education Service isn't just about educating, it's about empowering, allowing people to take control over their own lives. And that must be what we do in politics too. To make it clear to people, as Jeremy said, you don't have to take what you're given. And, conference, what has the Tories given us? 1 million fewer adult learners. 1,000 Sure Start centres lost. £1 billion cut from children's services. State-maintained nurseries fearing for their future. Children going hungry. Cuts targeted at the very people who need our support the most. In the run-up to the next budget, our task is to lead parents, teachers, trade unions and communities in demanding better and make clear that we offer better. Our National Education Service. In the words of the anthem we'll sing this week, a banner bright and a simple plain of human right and human gain. That is education under a Labour government. Education under a Labour government a human right for human gain. Conference, we have already changed the political direction of this country. Together, we have fought austerity. Now, conference, let's end it.
Wow, thank you very much, Angela, for that fantastic speech. Conference, we now have our final bit for this afternoon, which is taking of the votes. We will take these votes, at least initially, as a show of hands. If any of these are unclear, then we will move to separate votes of CLP and affiliate delegates. So first up, we have the contemporary composite on in-work poverty, which was moved by Usdaw. Can I see all those in favour first? Okay, and all those against? I think that's carried. Next, we've got the contemporary composite on the school system, which was moved by Nottingham East, CLP. Can I see all those in favour? And all those against? And I think that one is also carried. Next, we had the reference back of the section on accountability, which was on page 20 of the Early Years Education and Skills Policy Commission report. That was moved by Colne Valley CLP. Can I see all those in favour of referring back this section of the report, please? Okay, and can I see all those against? Okay, that's pretty clear. That's carried, thank you. Next, we've got the reference back of the section on special educational needs and disabilities, which was on page 18 of the Early Years Education and Skills Policy Commission report. That was the one that was moved by Islington North CLP. Can I see all of those in favour of referring back this section of the report? Okay, and all of those against? I think that's comprehensively carried as well, thank you. And finally, we've got the reference back on the section on grammar schools, which is on page 21 of the report. That's the reference back that was moved by the Socialist Educational Association. Can I see all those in favour of referring back that section of the report? And can I see all those against? And that reference back is also carried, thank you. Next up, we've got the Early Years Education and Skills Policy Commission annual report, which is pages 7 to 23 of the NPF report, as amended by the references back which have just been passed. Can I see all those in favour of accepting the report? Great. And can I see all those against? Brilliant, that's carried. And finally, the Work and Pensions and Equality Policy Commission annual report, which is pages 119 to 134 of the report. Can I see all those in favour of accepting the report? And can I see all those against? And that's also pretty comprehensive. Thank you very much, conference. We will now adjourn until 8:15 tomorrow morning when you have your policy seminars. The next plenary is at 9:45 a.m. Thank you very much.